Coming up on the Week 5 postgame show, we had 3 games decided by 18 points or more, and our one game was a 1-point game. You could have told me it might have been any of these games coming into the week, but we have the Air Mambas and Lob City to talk about. And then we're going to look ahead to Week 6 and make some predictions for Week 6, which we've already been talking before the show started. Good luck trying to pick who's going to win some of these games. So it's another one of those weeks with a lot of really good matchups that we get to look forward to and preview a little bit, and also put our analysts on the spot, because what's better than proving one of them wrong in person at the Oakland Beach Boys and Girls Club with them watching? Nothing beats that. So first, before we get to the show and break down Week 5, this episode is presented by Initial Response Restoration, our sponsor, our favorite sponsor, one of our few sponsors, but listen, Nick over there, bunch of good people. So 24/7 emergency services for water, fire, storm, and mold damages. Contact them for everything you could need. We restore, you recover. All right, let's get to the show.
Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me where your legacy be. Yeah.
I talked about it, our one close game. It also sets up a battle of 4-1 teams in Week 6. Let's talk about how we got there. Welcome to the Week 5 postgame show. I'm Joey. We have Aidan and Jess standing by. I'm excited to preview Week 6, but there's a lot to talk about from Week 5 that, we need to jump into Lob City and Air Mambas, who, let's kind of throw it back. It might have been a full year ago now. I can't remember, but they played an overtime game, and the Air Mambas were super close to winning that game with some different pieces. Luis Ramirez, back then it was in Week 2. I can't remember if it was last season or the season before, but they were that close to beating Lob City. And, if you would have told me, could they have gotten any closer to beating Lob City back then, I would have said no. That they had some free throws they could have hit to kind of give them a lead, in regulation. Were unable to hit them, went into overtime, and things just didn't go their way. They were closer in Week 5 to beating Lob City than they were in that game a season or two ago. And so let's, like I said, start with that one. It is Lob City 84, the Air Mambas 83, our closest game from Week 5. And Lob City with only 4 guys. It's lucky they had those 4 guys because they ended up all kind of making some big plays, and we'll talk about that in a second. But just to, set the scene a little bit here, Lob was down 8 with 1:35 left. And you're like, oh boy. It takes a Hachi bank 3. Like, okay, well, so now things are, starting to flip a little bit. Like, you got to get a little lucky sometimes. Lob was still down 5 with a minute left, and Cody got a layup. They were still attacking the basket. Cody split free throws down 3, so some points left on the board there. They follow the Mambas, and Chris Vincenzo splits free throws when he's up by 2, so they're back up by 3. Lob City doesn't settle. Amar Sabat, who had a great game, we'll get to the stats in a second, almost gets the and one, so now it's kind of bouncing the other way. He drives, gets fouled, and it rolls out. We're like, that's huge, down 3 to get an and one. It rolls out. He makes the first free throw, misses the second on purpose, and at this point, there was about 11, 15 seconds left, there's over 10 seconds left. Lob City was out of timeouts during this whole thing. I think they took their last timeout with 2 or 3 minutes left, and I was like, not sure I'm a fan of that, because you usually need them. But even then, I was like, all right, make them both. You're down by 1, foul. You still have 7, 8 seconds to get up the floor without a timeout. At worst case, down by 3. That's all you can really ask for here. That's if the Air Mambas make both of their free throws, and they just split them. So you might not even need to force a 3. I am in no position to question them because they missed the second free throw. Hachi gets a rebound, and so we all know Hachi, not the biggest player, and is able to chase down the ball. So kicks it to Cody at the top, who drives. Kicks it to Josh Oki. We'll put the highlight on social. He hits the 3 from the right wing, gives a fist bump. The Air Mambas take a timeout, now trailing by 1. So after all of that lead is gone. The Air Mambas are trailing. I'll get to the analysts in a second, I promise, because the Air Mambas actually come down and drive and kick for a pretty good look. Steve Simone had a pretty good look from 3. You would maybe like to get all the way to the rim, but he was open and just missed it. And Lob City escapes after all of that, being able to erase that deficit. Jess, that's what it's about. That was awesome. Take me through kind of your thoughts during that last fourth quarter and those last couple minutes, because it got scary there for a minute for Lob City, who was, about to fall to 2-3, and now they get the win and are 3-2.
Yeah, it was a really intense game overall, but especially in the fourth quarter because in quarters 2 and 3, Lob City was trailing, and that's not something that you'd really expect from them. So going into the fourth, I really personally didn't have that many high hopes. I was like, I feel like it's Air Mamba's time to take it. They really wanted the win, you could tell. I think it's funny and notable that Josh's only 3 points in the game was that three-pointer at the end. I mean, you got to hit him when you need him. But yeah, really unlike Lob City, but I mean, they had that energy to come back. They were not taking loss for an answer. And I just feel like the Air Mambas were a little frustrated, like I said, because they did want that win. And you got people like Keon Lawrence, who had a lot of fouls on him. But, I mean, he was playing incredible in the paint throughout the whole game. So I feel like that's notable to mention. But, yeah, just really intense game to watch as an analyst and to really see through.
Despite spending the first 5 or so minutes kind of talking about Lob City, the Air Mambas made plays, and it was kind of a 2-point game. It was a single possession game for a lot of that fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, with 4 minutes left, with 3 minutes left, and they were able to kind of build a little cushion there. We talked about them being up by 8 inside of 2 minutes, and it's funny, Cody and I have this conversation like once a month. It's like, it's never over. Like, the funky stuff happens, it's never over. And it's just because the free throws get so funky, and then, it's just people who aren't professional athletes, right, being put in these pressure situations, and this is what happens in a lot of leagues, but especially in this league. And so for the Air Mambas to build that lead, and they got some stops. They had a block on Almar Sabat, I know, in one of these last possessions, kind of in the final 2 minutes, and they got a run out of it, where it could have easily went the other way. They made plays, Aidan, and we'll do stats in a second, but they made plays and just still not enough, and Lob City somehow squeaks this one out.
Yeah, like you said, the Air Mambas, they had that open look to win the game. He was wide open, so you're going to have to give credit because I'd rather take a wide open 3 than a contested layup if you're trying to win the game. It just didn't fall. But I'll keep talking about this. I've seen the Mambas multiple times over the years, and each of their teams has been different. And I think this is the most complete team that they've had. They stepped away from iso ball a lot, and they play a lot of team basketball. And I think that's just based on chemistry. Like Chris Faig, Mario, they're brothers, so when they're out there on the court, they know how to play with each other. And Steve Simone, they feel like they've all grown up playing with each other. So it's more or less like last season when you look at it, they played a lot of iso, and they played a lot of just, I want to get my points, and that's how we're going to do it. And they started to come together as a team last season towards the end. But now, like I said last week, they had 2 wins coming into week 5, which was more than they had, or which is the same amount as they had last season. And now they're continuing to play this well against the Lob City team. Yes, Lob City only has 4 guys, but like Jess said and you said, the Mambas were in control most of the game, except for the first quarter. The first quarter, they got outscored by 14. But ever since then, they were continuing, and they were frustrating Lob City. Like, Almar was getting upset. He was smoking some layups, and it's just the ball wasn't falling for him that day. Cody was 4 of 13 from 3, which didn't seem like he was 4 of 13 because the 4 that he hit came in super big moments, and that's always going to be like that. But, like you said, the Mambas created those plays and were in this game for the majority of the game, but it ultimately led to just some blown coverages. It seemed like when Almar missed that free throw to get the possession back, maybe it was this game, maybe it wasn't, but I don't think they were fully understanding that, he missed it purposefully. Because sometimes you're going to go in there, you're going to make that so it's a 2-point game rather than a 3-point game, because the odds of you getting the ball back after purposely missing a free throw are slim, especially with a shorter team like Lob City, especially when you have Steve Simone out there and Keon out there who can just kind of grab boards whenever they want. But, like you said, that was Josh's only shot of the game. He had 2 shots. He missed the same 3-pointer from that same wing, and he just gets it back. And that just goes to show you that any single player on any single team can make a winning play. It just comes down to the final 10 seconds, and if you make that crucial mistake, it's unfortunate, and that'll cost you the game.
What's the saying? You don't have to get ready if you're always ready. So I butchered it, but something like that. If you stay ready, there you go. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? And so that's a credit to Josh for always being ready. Cody Crawford with 34, and we talked about the 4 3-pointers. Almar Sabat with 27 and 15. Hachi with 20 and 8 for him. And for the Air Mambas, Mario Valerio with 26. Chris Vincenzo with 20. Chris Faig with 11. Steve Simone with 10. And so, Lob City still won the rebounding department. Where's my offensive rebounds? Yeah, the Mambas had more, second chances there. Shot it a little worse from the floor, but pretty even. 8 made threes for Lob City as a team to 10 for the Air Mambas. Steals were just about even, and so a 1-point game for a reason, right? And some things bounce, and that's one that'll haunt you. Because I've been on the other end of those, whether it's in this league and other leagues, but ones like that'll haunt you. And now the Air Mambas 2-3 instead of 3-2, and so that one game could be huge later on, especially with some of the tiebreakers, kind of with where Lob City could potentially find themselves in with some of these other teams. If the Air Mambas had won that game, they get Rags next week, followed by the RI Warriors, and they close with the red hot halfway Crooks. For Lob City, they get to 3-2. They get the Skyhawks next week, the Road Dogs in week 7, and the RI Warriors in week 8. So some big games coming up. We'll get there. I talked about week 6 being loaded, but now Lob City at 3-2 is kind of, is one game back of the Crooks and Road Dogs now, and they have those games coming up against some of those teams where they can make up that ground. Finishing in the top 4 is kind of like the key for them, right? And we talked about it. That Final Four in one formation or another is going to be with good teams, right? Even if someone pulls an upset, they're going to have earned it, and they're going to be playing another good team. So it may not necessarily matter this season as much if you're the 1 or the 2 or the 3. You're going to have to go through 2, most likely, of those 3 other good teams in the top 4 to win a title. So let's get to, we'll just keep kind of cranking in order. But that's week 5 between the Air Mambas and Lob City. Let's get to those red-hot halfway Crooks. I talked about it as they take down Rags without Josh Perry, which that stinks. No Josh Perry, but the Crooks get to 4-1. 109 to 84. The halfway Crooks get the win. It took them a little while, maybe till the second or third quarter, to kind of blow it open, and that was kind of what we were talking about. But Kavai Simpson with 30 and 9, 6 players with at least 9 points for the halfway Crooks, and for Rags, Wook had 27 and a backflip. He added that in once again, another backflip. 5 of 10 from 3 and was hitting some deep ones. Devontae Davis with 21. And Clarence Brown with 17. They had some scoring, 45% from the floor. They went 12 of 33 from 3, not bad. They got crushed on the glass, and you can feel that. And that was just kind of the athleticism over time, I think, showing for the halfway Crooks, 50 to 23. So that, you can shoot it. They could have made a ton more threes. If you're going to get crushed on the glass and give up 21 offensive rebounds, and they were in a zone. So some of those are just like the ball bounces funny and you're not in position. But that makes it difficult to give the halfway Crooks 21 extra chances, at a possession to score, and they're going to capitalize more times than not, especially when they shoot nearly 61% from the floor. Aidan, you can go first. It's time. And as we set up the Crooks and Road Dogs next week, there'll be more time to, praise the halfway Crooks, if you will. But, this one, Orain Smith was there for the first time and hit some threes. And so some familiar faces, and the Crooks are kind of, that they're the athletic team that likes to get out and run this season, where in the past it hasn't been that way, Aidan.
Yeah, you said it correctly. Old Crooks teams, they weren't really the full athletic, sprinting down the court every single possession, whereas this team is. It's very unfortunate that Josh Perry was hurt, because if he was not hurt, I think this would have been just a battle back and forth. Like you said, you guys killed them in rebounding, and that's just going to happen when you don't really have the size. And especially, like, you have David DePina down there, and you have Nick, and you even have Kavai down there, even getting offensive rebounds, like you said, you beat them on that, but more possessions to score. Whereas you're taking away possessions from Rags. And, like you said, I think the addition of Orain Smith, 9 points, 3 of 7, not the, 45% from 40%, but he hit 3 big threes, and he was facilitating like he should be. And I think you guys as a whole are coming together, because you have that chemistry with Nick, Kavai, and Orain, who have all played together, and you have the veteran leader in you and Jared. You had a solid 15. You hit 5 threes last night. I haven't seen that in a while. Going on, that's 11 total in the 2 leagues over this week. But again, when you have your whole team scoring almost 10 points, everybody, I think that's the key to success, is you want to have ball movement, and it's not dependent on one player, where in times it has been like that for the halfway crooks, or dependent on two players where you're playing that 1-2 game rather than a 1-4 game. And you guys are getting a lot of open shots, and I think that's just the facilitating and continuing to not settle for easy shots. And for the Rags, man, they fall to 2 and 3. There's 2 and 3 teams, them and the Mambas. We have all talked about both those teams thinking they can move up in the power rankings or they can move down. And I think the Rags had momentum coming into this, and I think the game would have been closer. May have been a different outcome if Josh Perry was here, but it's all speculation. But again, they're continuing to show that they're a decent team in this league, and they're finding their footing. So hopefully they can continue to play good basketball.
And we kick off week 6, and we'll make them make some picks. But it is the Air Mambas and Rags in that game we've been talking about. Will most likely be a tiebreaker game. You know, the winner of that game will just have an advantage in the seeding one way or another, whether it's because they get the win, or if those two teams finish with the same record, whoever wins this week 6 matchup will have the tiebreaker between those two teams. So that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. You talked about ball movement, and I think that was the key. And it's funny, that's even what the Rags were saying right after the game. And, you know, all in, you know, good fun and nothing like that. But just like, yeah, they, you know, it didn't matter kind of what we did, the Rags were saying, because of that ball movement and just finding the open guy and taking advantage. And so that made it really difficult for the defense. Jess, you can continue on, you know, with some halfway crooks love. It's all good. She wears red usually. Purple's close. Can bring out the eyes a little bit maybe. Maybe you want to switch over. It's not too late because those two teams play in week 6. But what'd you see from the crooks in week 5?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see about that. But the crooks, I mean, you got Kavi and you got Nick. I mean, they just work so well together in their chemistry. And, you know, talking to Nick in the post-game interview, he actually brought up that rebounds are going to be really important for their team looking ahead to next week and just in general. Because in the first, I mean, not that they weren't getting rebounds, but I think it was kind of playing slower, and the Rags were kind of holding their own. They were trying to get their momentum there. So weren't getting as many rebounds there, as many opportunities, but as the game went on, just more and more opportunities presented themselves for the crooks. And they were just really getting ahead of the ball, moving it around. And like you also mentioned, you know, the Rags, I think that it was unfortunate they didn't have Josh Perry, but I think that they struggle to move the ball around. And Josh Perry, he's a very vocal player. I've noticed him going down the court. He's talking to the players, telling them where to go, kind of pointing around. Like, he kind of takes charge. And I think a team like that, who's still trying to figure out their ground, needs a player to take charge. And I think it was hard not having him there. But they still, you know, tried to play their hardest and get out there. But it was the crooks in the end. Can you say? Also, good job, Joey, with your I gotta shout you out.
Thank you. It's funny, the offensive rebounds being the key. I mean, that was what was keeping Rags in the game, right? I mean, you know, whatever was happening on the defensive side, they were able to stay afloat because of, and I said it in the second quarter, at least 10 points, you know, in the first 15 minutes were on second chance opportunities for Rags. They would miss a shot, get their own rebound, and be right there to put it back up. And we're like, what the heck just happened? You know, we just played good defense, and they still got 2 points. When that was taken away, it got a little harder to score, and I think that's what kind of helped shift that level as we got into the third and fourth quarter. But, yeah, you know, none of that matters as we head into next week because they get the Air Mambas, and hopefully, you know, Josh Perry will be back for that one so we can see a full-strength Rags team versus a full-strength Air Mambas team. Yeah, enough on that one. Let's keep it going. We had the Skyhawks and RI Warriors next. We'll go to that one next. And it is 100-70. The Skyhawks remain undefeated. The highlights in this one were crazy. The scoring, we got 100 points on the nose. Omar Rahman with 21 and 7. Isaiah Schroth with 17 and 9. We can list them all. They had 5 players in double figures with at least 11. And for the RI Warriors, they finished with 3 guys. We don't even got to talk about that. Who knows what the heck happened? Brandon Kakela with 36 and 8. Shout out to him. He wanted a shout out. I'll do it because he was possibly the quietest I've ever heard him. So, you know, hey, you get a shout out. In that. But also 36 points. You know, 13 and 19. And I know this you know, circumstances weren't the best for the RI Warriors this week, but 36 is 36. Doesn't have to be as long because we can kind of turn this into a semi-preview as well, and I'll kind of tease who the teams play next. But what did this, the Skyhawks took advantage and just jumped out, Jess. We'll go to you first. But how were they able to be so dominant in Week 5?
Yeah, taking advantage is a good way to put it, because I don't want to sound, kind of rude when I say this, but I think that they did use that game as like a practice. Like, they were saving their energy, definitely, they were playing hard, but I could have seen a little bit more energy from them. I think, though, it was a smart tactic for them to save their energy, try things out. As a team, they're a team where every single player is scoring. I'm pretty sure that every player got points on the board last game, and the lowest amount was like 7 points. So, you've got a full roster of people who are just playing their hardest and scoring. There's just going to be success with that regardless. So, their players just have amazing chemistry.
And it was on display for sure in Week 5, Aidan. The RI Warriors, it would have been nice to have a Kevin Veter. We can name more players on their team, Bezal Masood, right? Henry had 12 and 7 and was kind of doing his thing as best he could. But, Aidan, the Skyhawks, they get Lob City. And so this is kind of, next week will be, I'm sure they'll be more engaged. And, we'll have to see that chemistry on display against whoever shows up for Lob City because, as we saw, they always bring it. But go ahead on the Skyhawks. And 5-0 is 5-0. It doesn't matter how you get there. They're 5-0.
Yeah, 5-0 is 5-0, like you said, and like Jess said, the chemistry with them is kind of crazy. They had their whole team this week. So towards the end, when everything was going a little downhill, they just decided to swap the 4 and 4. So that's what they were doing. But they also had a lot of energy. When you have Jalen Benson, who had a triple-double, 11 points, 10 rebounds, he also had 10 steals. And that just kind of shows you the intensity. Despite Warriors having only 3 players, Benson never stopped. He's a defensive menace, and I think he should be the key. He's one of the X factors. We haven't done that segment in a little while, but I think he is one of the X factors for the Skyhawks because of his defensive abilities and his shot creating and shot making. And like Jess said, I don't know how they were treating it, but the Skyhawks kind of knew going into this that once all the shenanigans happened with the RI Warriors, that they were in the driver's seat to just kind of try their own things, try some lineups, have some fun before they, go and get the 9-time champs Lob City this week, which I think will be a very interesting matchup. And I hope that it's a good game. I hope Lob City has at least 4 or 5 players at least, so they have some subs.
5. Yeah, 5 is good. You'll get to make a pick in a second. And, the RI Warriors next week, despite all of that, do get Gold Rush, which we're going to get to the Gold Rush's Week 5 game in a second. But it is the RI Warriors in Gold Rush to finish off Week 6. And so somebody will get a win, which is awesome. And should be a good game. And so we'll get your picks for that one as well. But first, let's do the last game from Week 5. The Road Dogs take care of Gold Rush. 104-86. We talked about it. The Road Dogs didn't even have their full team either. Only 5 guys for them as well, and they all got some run. But 53 is definitely enough for Joe Secator, and 11 threes. And so, he was there, watching my game, and he's like, 5 threes, I'll give you 11. Watch this. And always. But it was good to see that, and that's kind of a flashback and kind of what I talked to him about. This is how things used to be, right? And so if he can get back to that level, that's a whole different dynamic for this Road Dogs team, who normally has too many players, in a good way, but it can be a bad way, right? We've talked about that, where it's like can't get into rhythm. Well, they were able to get into rhythm in Week 5, and he goes for 53 on 66% shooting from the floor. For Gold Rush, Kyle Wolf had 35 and 7, Brandon Taylor with 22 and 7, and Tyler McNeil 12 and 13, a double-double. 33-16 after the first quarter, and then really never looked back for the Road Dogs. Jess, we'll just go to you first again, and again we can kind of tease this in because the Road Dogs are 4-1. They get the Halfway Crooks next week, and so both teams are kind of trending upward, as in the Halfway Crooks and the Road Dogs. But what did these 5 guys from the Road Dogs show you, Jess, And that Joe Secatore performance, maybe he should have saved it one more week. We'll see. We'll see if he still has it next week, but we'll just see in week 5.
Yeah, like you said, less players, but my dogs did not disappoint. Joe, every time you could see it in his face, like he wanted to hit those threes, and he was going up, and he was intentional with them, making 11. Like, it was insane. I remember watching from the table every single time he's going up. We're like, there's no way. So he was on fire. That was a crucial part of their win. They really just got into rhythm, and I gotta shout out Ethan Austin. I mean, I don't think assists get enough attention on here, and he was setting everyone up. Like, he was going out of his way to get the ball up, getting his other teammates to dunk, getting those assists. So I think that's really important. And like we talked about, they have their team chemistry. So I'm really excited to see them next week. Always got to root for them.
Oh, well.
See where it goes.
We already know who she's picking. That's all right. We can skip that whole segment. Aidan. Aidan, for the Road Dogs, and you can kind of give some, background to. I can't remember if Joe was in the league when you were way back when. Of course not. Just great segue here. But you've been around, and you know where I'm going with this. This was kind of a turn back the clock performance from him. But what does he add to this Road Dogs team, kind of from a bigger, if you zoom out a little bit, what does he add as we get ready for them to play the Halfway Crooks? And then I'm pretty sure, they get Lob City again, right? Which would be another awesome matchup and kind of test for both of those two teams. So when things are going like this, what can this Road Dogs team do?
If things are going like this, they can pretty much do anything they want in this league. And like you just said with Joe Sec, if he can give you 53 on just a night when there's only 5 of them, he's getting what this proves is that he needs to be on the court a little more. And I know he's on the court a lot, but it's just like you said with matchups, they have so many guys. But bigger picture, if they have their whole team and they're struggling, and you need a spark plug, or you need just somebody to get you those buckets, even a quick dunk to get the hype up, is Joe. And I think his ability to make those threes, and some of them are pretty deep too. So his ability to make deep threes and continue to the on-ball pressure and not kind of give up anything is going to be the key for the Road Dogs in this upcoming game and the rest of their season, where they go and try and capture a second title. It's tough to say this because the Road Dogs have always had so many players, but playing with less players in a way is sometimes better. From what I've seen through the league, just because we've talked about it before, they have 9 guys. They're subbing in 4 and 4 or 2 and 2 or anything, and some of the stuff gets messed up. But hopefully they can take from this win, they can take out, we have a set lineup now. Ethan plays well with Karan and Joe. Philip Critchlow was in there too. He had 10 points and 22 rebounds. He was kind of grabbing everything. When you have, they're just, with only the 5 guys they had this week, they were kind of experimenting, and I don't think these 5 guys have played a lot on the floor together, minus maybe Ethan and Karan. But it's just kind of, if they're looking like this, and they can continue to look like this in final form towards the playoffs, they will be a very scary team.
Yeah, I mean, well, the one thing that comes to my mind is you talked about how sometimes less players is better. Well, Lob City's over here like, yeah, sometimes, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes we'd like a damn sub. But in the Road Dog situation, get in that rhythm, right? You can see what that can do and what that can mean for some of these players. And so how do you do that when there are more players there, right? And it always comes down to who's going to sacrifice what and what kind of roles are people going to take on. And everyone on that team is smart and can see that. And so at what point does that win, right? And do you kind of give up some of your minutes for the betterment of the team? We'll see. Real quick before we move on, shout out Kareem Cooper. Got hurt Monday night in Mass and is most likely done. And so not to make light of that situation, but that kind of opens up a spot for the Road Dogs, unfortunately, because Kareem Cooper's, I said it probably last week, their most valuable player, to that team on both ends of the floor. And so that will free up some minutes and not in the way you wanted to for a Road Dogs team that has the depth, but against these teams that they're going to be matching up with in the playoffs, Kareem is very important to what they like to do on defense. And so shout out to him, and he'll be back. Knowing Kareem, he'll definitely be back, and looking forward to that. But all right, that's enough on the Road Dogs, because now they're the enemy officially right now, starting now at this part in the show. We're going to get to week 6, make some picks for each matchup, and let the analysts kind of break it down a little bit. It's not the one-word game, but it's close because we got to keep stuff moving here. But let's make some picks for week 6. Week 6 picks presented by Initial Response Restoration. You guys know the deal. Check them out. Let's go right in order because they're all good games. So how do you split this up? We start week 6 with Air Mambas and the Rags. Like one sentence. And when I say that, you're going to give me 2, and that's fine, but like one sentence. Okay? Aidan, who you got? Air Mambas and Rags, and why?
I'm going with the Air Mambas this week, and my reasoning is I think they want it more.
All right, and maybe a little experience too. I might have just stole, Jess's explanation, but who you got? Rags, Air Mambas, and why?
I also have Air Mambas. Don't want to be too long with my sentence, but because of this past week, they're proven it.
All right, and that's 2 for the Air Mambas. I like it. That's something for the Rags to work with. I know that. I know they listen and pay attention. And we'll see if they can build. Sometimes it's hard, and we're going to see about this Air Mambas team, which is awesome. And this game was going to be good anyway, right? To be coming off a game like that where you can think all week, we had them. How did we not win that game? We had them. We outplayed them for 2.5 quarters, kind of minus that first run, right, in the first quarter. We outplayed them. We had a lead. We did everything right. We had them. How does that team respond, right? And we see it in the pros. We see it in college. Sometimes it's like, all right, we're going to prove that we kind of deserve to win that one by taking it out on this team that gets us next. So sorry, guys. It stinks that you're next, but the wrath is coming. And sometimes it's a carryover of that. How the hell do we not win? Like what? And now it kind of compounds itself, and now maybe Rags catches them. We'll see. I don't have to make a pick. That's the best part about being the host on this show. Next, Lob City and the Skyhawks. We'll go Jess first for your pick, and why?
Skyhawks, and my one word, if we were doing the one-word game, would be undefeated. So
short and sweet, and maybe depth too. We can. I'll take all the good words. Aidan, who you got?
This is tough because you never want to go against Lob City, but I don't know if everything can go right for them like it did this week. So my pick is also the Skyhawks. Depth and continuing to show dominance.
All right, you know my rule of thumb is you don't bet against Lob City. So we'll find out. Especially, that's going to be a great game. And so I should have been setting some spreads because that would be, a close game for sure. Because there's just so much unknown, right? And we expect everyone from the Skyhawks to be there. They've been consistent with that. And then for Lob City, we don't know. And so that's kind of the variable to throw in to that matchup. All right, we can maybe skip Jess on this one. It's the Halfway Crooks and the Road Dogs. Go ahead, Jess. Get it out of the way. Who you got?
Gotta go with the Road Dogs. You give them a little bit of motivation, they have the energy to take any game that they want.
They'll be motivated, that's for sure. Aidan?
I'll split it. The Road Dogs won't like me for this because I've gone against them every now and then. I think they're a fantastic team, but I think the Halfway Crooks can squeak out of this, and I think it's just based on their chemistry's getting better, and they're truly finding their footing in this era this era of the league.
And just to kind of, I think, a key for this one, I think, rebounding is one of those things you can look at right after the game and be like, yep, it makes sense why the Road Dogs won. They had 6 more offensive rebounds. Yep, they won the rebounding. They had 10 more rebounds overall as a team. That makes sense on why they won. For Lob City and the Skyhawks, it's probably going to be field goal percentage and who can protect the rim better, and then if Cody can make some threes. And I know that's like, let's just talk about the entire game, right? Make shots and play defense, like no crap. But there's certain points on the box score kind of for all of these games where it's like, yep, this explains it right here. Like you can feel it too while you're watching. So we'll kind of see. Both of those matchups should be great. And kind of back-to-back is going to be awesome in the gym at 7:30 and then 8:30 for the Road Dogs and Halfway Crooks. Let's close it out. RI Warriors and Gold Rush. Which team, Jess, is going to get their first win and why?
This one's tough, but I was going to say Gold Rush just because the way the team carries themselves and plays through literally anything. You've seen them down in a few games, but they really keep, if they can get into a rotation, I feel like they can get their first win.
Aidan, who you got?
I'm also going to go with Gold Rush. Similar reasons to Jess. It's just kind of, they've been improving every single week, and they're figuring out their lineups. And I think with, I know I'm talking a lot, but I think with how the Warriors situation is going and how their team's been building, I think this is where the Gold Rush can squeak by and get their first win of the season.
And yeah, and so for both of those teams, after that, Gold Rush gets Rags, and then they get the Skyhawks, so maybe a tough way to close for them. And for the RI Warriors, following this game coming up in Week 6, they get the Air Mambas again, which should be fun if everyone's there. And we'll kind of see about the Air Mambas at that point after Week 6 when they get the RI Warriors in Week 7. And then the Warriors get Lob City to close out the season. So this is that chance, right? And to kind of start to right the ship and kind of make up some ground here in the standings for both of these teams. And they know it, so it's going to be a great game. 4 really good games coming up in Week 6. The analysts did an okay job. Just, nah. At least I got Aidan to go with the halfway crooks. But they made their picks. We'll see what happens in Week 6. Stay tuned for power rankings. There may not be a ton of movement. And it's just one of those seasons. Maybe after this week, as in like Week 6, we'll see some movement as we kind of get closer to the playoffs, where the power rankings don't matter in the playoffs. So my favorite thing is when everyone gets all worked up, like, oh, why are we ranked below this team? I'm like, first of all, none of it matters. It's all made up and the score doesn't matter. And what matters is the standings, because that's what the playoffs are based off of. And so anything can happen in the playoffs. We are 3 games away. It's crazy. Season's almost over. It just started, and it's almost over. But Aidan and Jess, good job. We're through Week 5. Get ready for Week 6. We'll see you on Tuesday, July 8th, for Week 6 at the Oakland Beach Boys and Girls Club in Rhode Island. Check out thelegacyleagues.com, and thanks for watching.